So you've bought yourself a cheap guitar, or you found one in the loft, or maybe someone's given you one. And as is often the case, we find that the action is a little bit dramatic. Here's a few things that might be causing the problem and how to fix them. So firstly, what is action? What are we talking about with that? Well, that's the string height along here. All right, so that is a huge amount of movement. It means those strings are too high at that point. Now, the kind of problems that can create are pretty massive, to be honest. On some guitars, it means that you'll be killing your fingers because you're pushing the strings down further than you need to. On a very cute little short scale bass with fat strings, that finger tension isn't going to be a massive issue. However, the height of that string means that when you push it down, especially on those higher frets, you're going to stretch the string so far, it's going to be wickedly out of tune. If we do it on the E, wow, that's ridiculously out. So go down a fret. Now there's definitely an argument that the intonation could be out on this bass, but that action will absolutely have a huge effect on that because you're stretching that string a lot further than it wants to go. So let's see what the obvious answer could be. Now this is a particularly weird bridge that I've not really seen a great deal of before, but simple thing is to lower that bridge pin. Now make sure with every one of these alterations that you do, you retune the guitar. So us lowering the bridge has slackened all of those strings off, so make sure you retune again. So we can see that that's considerably better in terms of string stretch, but that string movement still feels a little bit high to me. Now obviously at the other end we have string height from the fretboard as well. This is going to have less effect up here, but still something to take care of. So again, that movement down to that first fret only wants to be really small. Those three are nice. That big E string is just a little bit high, so I think I'm going to file that nut down just to lower that off, though I don't think that's the big problem for now. The other issue could be that the neck is bent. If there's a great big relief on the neck, then that could create that big high action. So let's check that out. So checking neck relief is actually fairly simple. You could get a big long ruler out in between, but you have a thing that's straight on here. So if we hold it down roughly where the neck meets the body and somewhere like the first or second fret, we should be able to then tell what kind of gap we have in the middle. That is a tiny movement, which is exactly what we want. We don't want it perfectly flat. We do want some relief, but if when you hold down both ends, there's a big gap in the middle, it means your neck has some curve on it. And if that was the problem, you'd need to get into the truss rod in here and move the Allen key to try and straighten out that neck out. So we've checked out the three major things that are fairly simple to fix. Was it the bridge? Well, it's better, but it's as low as it'll go and needs to go lower. Was it the nut? Well, we can tweak that a little bit more, which will help, but I don't think that's the big problem. Is it that the neck's bent? No, this one is absolutely spot on. So what else can we do to fix that action issue? Well, if we can't move the string down, we'll have to move the neck up. So we're going to put a shim in between the body and the neck. So the first thing is to measure how thick that's going to need to be. So I think reading through on some of the different strings, we could probably have a 3mm shim, which would put the neck almost touching the strings. Now don't forget we've got the bridge is at the lowest setting, so that actually gives us a bit of play there that we can lift the bridge up to the correct height without going crazy with extremes. So with a bolt-on neck, that's fairly simple. Just take the strings off, unbolt the neck from the back, being very careful not to slip with your screwdriver, and then we're going to use the neck to actually cut the size of that shim. So here we go. So I'm just using a piece of oak To be honest, any hardwood will do. Some of it will be colour matching. On this occasion, I'm probably going to paint it black to match the body to kind of hide it off. But anything that's hard and solid, so your oaks, maples, mahoganies, general stuff that you would make necks out of, so that the vibrations travel through quite nicely. I wouldn't bother using something like a pine or some softwood because it'll probably just deaden the sound a little bit. With it clamped on, get yourself a very sharp pencil and just run all the way around it to mark off exactly what size is going to fit the bottom of that neck. Now notice at this point I haven't told you how I've cut out this piece of wood. That's because it depends on what tools you have. I've used bandsaws, planes, belt sanders. It honestly does not matter in the slightest. Whatever tools you have that can cut out a piece of wood, just use those. There we go, that's pretty much there. We've got height adjustment on the bridge to take out that slack. I declare this plate the correct thickness. And as we use the neck to shape off this back section, we're then going to use the body to shape off this front section. So the last thing I'm going to do before we screw it all back together is put the holes through the shim as well. What I don't want the threads of the screws to do is bite into that shim, and then sometimes it can create a gap when it's threaded on both parts. So always drill through the shim and then it'll work through the neck and pull everything nice and tight when you clamp it up. And other base faces. That has sorted out the problem. We've got a little bit of twang. So a little bit of shizzle, which I quite like. The bridge has plenty of scope to go up a little bit more if you wanted a really clean sound from that. But that little shim has done what it's needed to do. Now, yes, that still needs tidying up, painting black, making shiny, a few other little cosmetic things with this old guitar. But that is an entirely different video. In the meantime, check out this video because I think you'll really enjoy it, and make sure you click like, subscribe, bells and all that whistle stuff. Until later, God bless, see you soon.